If you're looking for a new way to support the podcast, check out W.GG, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. There, you can use code SIDEMISSION for 10% off your order. Thank you to W for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by the boys, Kyle Lynch and Matt Beck. And today we're talking about a game that all of us were very excited for, a game that some are even calling their Game of the Year for 2025. And they're incorrect when they say that, by the way. Borderlands 4. Wow, where to start, boys? Because, this game's rough. This game is very, very rough. Coming off of Borderlands 3, I think all of us were fairly excited for Borderlands 4 because while 3 did not have the most incredible story, it was at least good enough and it served its purpose as a really good backdrop behind really good looter shooter gameplay. And Kyle, I'm sure you remember, we played through that game I don't know how many times together. And it's fair to say that we were all pretty excited for this one. And at first, I think that excitement was very valid. I think we were all enjoying it very, very much early on. The problem begins to arise, or the problems, plural, began to arise once we got past about the 7 or 8 hour mark. And we began to realize that this is, after Borderlands, the pre-sequel, probably the second worst Borderlands game that's ever been released. I don't know. I don't really consider Tiny Tina's to be a part of the franchise because Borderlands is not really in the name. But it's definitely not better than Borderlands 2 is still far and away the best Borderlands game. Borderlands 3 is better than this. And I'd be hard-pressed to call the original Borderlands worse than this. This game is a train wreck. And that's putting it mildly. Kyle, I'll start with you just because I think this is an issue that both of us had, especially the deeper we got into the game. And Matt, you may have had this issue too. I don't know. We haven't really spoken a ton about it one-on-one, but Kyle, one of the biggest aspects of the Borderlands franchise has always been the vaults. And at last check, we got 60, 70% into the game and we still hadn't gone to a vault. I mean, I begin to question if the people that were behind the creation of this game, I'm starting to wonder if they understood what Borderlands players liked, because that was one of the many disappointing aspects of this game. Where are the vaults? Because we have not seen any.
That's one thing that really sets this apart from Borderlands 3, which is crazy because Borderlands 3, it was kind of mixed reviews. I genuinely liked it. I didn't necessarily like the villain that much.
Same.
But I think that, the boss fights were still a lot of fun. The pacing was done well. I mean, the big shock when, they killed the brother, that was when I think the villains actually kind of got interesting. Just happened way too late in the game. And here, I think they started with a really interesting villain. And they've kind of done nothing with him almost the entire game. I mean, he's not really present at all.
Yeah.
And you just go to no vaults. You don't really make a whole... I mean, we're over halfway through the game, and it doesn't feel like we've hardly done anything to progress the story. It's just... I don't know, it feels weird to say that looking back, Borderlands 3 had a better story now, because it's, we had a lot to say about that. We had a lot of complaints about, the pacing, especially on Eden 6. We had a lot of complaints about, the boss, and, how the Calypso twins were just cringe, but it's like, damn, I don't understand how I would rather play that now than this, and... This is a $70 game. Mind you, they were going to charge $80 for this until everybody, was pissed and they got all that backlash. But I don't understand why they even released this game like this. Not just the terrible story, but also the optimization was miserable. I mean, every time you play with someone, it would just break the fucking game. And that's one thing that I think really deterred me from wanting to play this is Borderlands is a co-op game. It's always been a co-op game to me. And when you play with people, I mean, the optimization is probably fixed now, but when you play with people and that causes the game to break, that's not good. That doesn't make me want to continue playing, and I'm not interested in beating this game, to be honest.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I don't know if you guys have seen this. This might be some new information for y'all. Do you guys know that on Steam this game is already 20% off?
I heard.
This game is it is already 20% off, and the game is 30 days old, 30 something days old. And people probably hear that and go, "Oh, well, that's not a huge discount." Maybe there's but you have to realize, for a brand new game to be 20% off less like a month after release, that's bad. That's really, really bad. Like that's not, that means that a lot of people, one, that means that it didn't really sell all that well, and they're trying to do whatever they can to increase sales a little bit. But that also means that a fair amount of people have likely returned the game, have likely asked for a refund, have there's a lot of variables that go into that. Obviously, I don't want to dive into it too deep, but I saw a content creator say something along the lines of, imagine you were somebody like us that bought the game at launch. It was in really, really bad shape optimization wise, like you just said, Kyle. And now imagine the perspective of somebody else that is buying it a month later for 20% off. So instead of spending 70, they're spending like $55. Like, and they're getting a game that's probably much better optimized. Like, why did it take you 30 days to fix that? Like, I know that like the easy go-to for all of us in these situations is Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk at the end of the day, when it was fixed, and Matt, you can attest to this, when it was fixed, it was an incredible game. It was a game that a lot of people have grown to love over the last couple of years now.
Yeah.
This game does not fit that mold, though. I don't think if this game had perfect optimization, that it would have all of a sudden been a really good game. I think it would have been a very, very mediocre game. It would have been a step back for the Borderlands franchise, coming off of already, I think all three of us agree, pretty much since Borderlands 2, 3 other step backs in the pre-sequel, Borderlands 3, and Tiny Tina. You've already seen 3 straight step backs, and now you've got another one in Borderlands 4. It just goes to show what I've always said. I don't know that they're ever going to recapture what made Borderlands 2 great. I don't know that they're ever going to be able to capture that again. I think that Borderlands 2 was lightning in a bottle. They got very, very lucky that Handsome Jack ended up being a generationally great villain. And I don't know that they're ever going to be able to find that again. And there's more on that we can talk about with regards to a lot of the Borderlands-y things this game does that, to be honest, and Kyle, we've talked a lot about it. It kind of wears thin on you after a while. But Matt, the optimization, it's going into the co-op side of this. How often when the three of us played, whether it was you and Kyle in my game, me and Kyle in your game, whatever combination you want to use here, how often would you hear from the 2 players that were not the host that like their bullets weren't even registering? The damage they were doing wasn't even registering. Like, it feels like you're just shooting nothing. You're seeing bullets leave your gun, and you're not seeing the health bar go down. Like, Matt, I don't know where this would rank in terms of games that have recently come out when it comes to bad optimization, but I have to feel like this is one of the worst that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I remember on Twitter, I remember that Rady Pitchford was basically saying that this was before the Borderlands 4 release, that people will probably pay like $100 for this game. And I remember all the backlash that he received from that. And I was thinking, there's no way that this game is, obviously not going to be worth $100. I mean, I think the $70 price tag is perfectly reasonable because it's, a Xbox Series, PC, PlayStation 5 exclusive. I'm not going to lie. I did not experience a game that had such bad optimization on consoles since perhaps like going as far back that you brought up Cyberpunk, which was a really good example of a game that came out and had terrible optimization on consoles. Like, we would be playing for going around the 30-minute mark, and I would experience such issues as my weapons were not hitting the enemies properly. I was aiming directly at them, and then a couple of seconds there would be this delay, and they would take damage literally seconds after I shot my weapon at them. Or when I jumped on my bike, I would just be floating in the air, and then everything would just start just going crazy, and then I would be like a couple of miles away from where I started off when I got on there. And it was just really disappointing because, I mean, I felt like the game had a good start at the beginning. I think that Kairos is a pretty well designed new planet for Borderlands players. I like the farm area, like the farmland type of thing, that you have like the factories and you have like the big ships. Like, I think it was a really well designed, locale, but unfortunately, and I'm just going to say this, I know that this is a normal thing in Borderlands games, but good fucking God, I cannot stand how much dialogue the NPCs have. I started quests, and I'm sitting there for 5 or 6 minutes. I'm just like, in the words of Kyle, just let me play the damn game.
Like, but it's true though. Like, it's true. Like, Kyle, we were talking about it. Like, how often would we start a quest and we would just be like, bro, can we seriously, can we play the game we paid for? Like, why are we sitting here? Like, we're listening to all this dialogue that, to be honest with you, 90% of it has nothing to do with what you're about to do. Like, 90% of it is just meaningless dialogue. It's just like the writers were really feeling themselves.
Let me say this real fast.
Go ahead.
They have turned every fucking NPC into Claptrap.
Yes. Yes. And that is not a good thing. That is not a good thing at all. Like, that Claptrap had his time in Borderlands 2 where he was at his peak. His humor was good. It wasn't overbearing. And it was used very well. Now it's just like every single time Claptrap speaks, I feel my IQ slowly going down. I feel my brain cells slowly offing themselves. And that's just the nicest way I can say it. It's terrible. Which leads me into, I do want to talk about, I think, the one thing we all agree on that is positive. I do want to get to that eventually. But Kyle, it leads me into the next point, and I think you brought up a really good point when we were playing it. Have we gotten to the point where the three of us, and I want to keep this in, I want everybody to keep this in mind. This is the same podcast that you're listening to that loved Donkey Kong. That in a few weeks' time, you're going to hear likely me and Matt speak very positively about Pokemon Legends. How is it possible that we have all outgrown Borderlands before we outgrew either of those franchises? Yeah. How is that possible? Like, Borderlands is supposed to be, I know it's wacky and it's always been kind of that zany comic, like gross humor, but it's still a more mature game than either of the two franchises I just mentioned. It's still significantly more mature. But it feels like at a certain point, this is a franchise that has just gone nowhere in terms of evolving. It's gone absolutely nowhere. Like, it's still the same crude dialogue. It's the same jokes that you've heard in every other Borderlands game that you've played. And there's a comment that I made about the game that I told you I said to Kyle, and I'm not going to repeat it on here because if I say it, it'll get us in trouble. But it's just like everything is so excessive. It's so it's excessive potty humor.
They dialed it up to 10.
It's like, it is awful. It's to a point where I'm like, I'm not even laughing because I've heard these jokes 50 times already in the hour that I've played today. Like, none of it's original. Like, Kyle, I think you said it best. I think there's a chance that all three of us might have just outgrown this franchise, and maybe we just didn't realize it.
What's crazy is, like, I like to think about sometimes I might have outgrown this franchise or that franchise, I also, I have to go back and replay Borderlands 2. Is it me? Or is it the writing? Because If, like, for example, I've said this multiple times this year, I've watched some of the latest episodes of SpongeBob, and they suck. They're not funny. I didn't laugh one bit, right? Straight face whole
Kyle,
episode.
we watched Sonic Boom.
Yeah, like
think about it.
But then, I thought, okay, well, I've just outgrown SpongeBob because the new episodes are just dumb and not funny to me. Well, I went back and watched some episodes from season 1, and I was laughing my ass off. I didn't realize how funny they were, and it was the writing. The writing was so much better in SpongeBob season 1 than it is now. It is terrible now, and I think that it's all about a lack of creativity in the jokes, because once you've gone for so long, like you said, it's like, well, I've heard this before. I've seen these things before, and that's why SpongeBob isn't funny now. I think that's why Borderlands isn't funny now, because they have to evolve. And unfortunately, it seems like they've devolved. They think that we're still in 2012, and my brother in Christ, it's over a decade later. These jokes that were funny when we were in middle school and we were in high school have aged horribly. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Maybe they're still making games for that audience, and they're still trying to capture that middle high school, audience. And these games just aren't for me, but I was really excited for this game, and I think that I'm really just disappointed in the fact that with so many franchises nowadays seeming to have aged with their audience, this one is 100% falling back, and it doesn't seem like it's gone anywhere in the last 12, 13 years.
You know what I think the issue is I think, and I think we've all said this a few times to each other, is that when you think, well, I know, Kyle, we have. Matt, I know, remember before we got on and recorded, you obviously mentioned that you had not played a lot of Borderlands 2, but I feel like what made Borderlands 2 great was that despite all the humor, despite all the crude jokes and all that, which were funny because they were well written, like, what balanced Borderlands 2 and what made it great was that it had plenty of serious moments as well. I don't want to spoil any of it for Matt because he hadn't played it, and we were talking about maybe playing it together one day. But there are serious moments in that game that bring a little bit of that bring variety, that kind of balances out the humor with a good serious tone. And I feel like that's a lot of what Handsome Jack did really well as a villain, is that he's a villain that he taunts you a lot. He makes fun of you a lot. He roasts you a lot. But when he wants to be menacing, he's a menace. He is a villain. When he wants to be evil, he is evil. Here, the Timekeeper is such an interesting villain, but his presence is just non-existent after the opening hours. He's just not there hardly at all. And it's disappointing, whereas Handsome Jack had a constant presence throughout the entirety of Borderlands 2. And I'm going to say something else. As much as I like the Timekeeper and I prefer him to the Calypso twins, the Calypso twins were also present for 90% of that story as well. And their presence kept reminding you of what your ultimate goal was, which was to stop them. The Timekeeper, half the time, I forgot that he existed. And I don't think it's the fault of I don't think it's the fault of the VA, and I don't think it's the fault of the character itself or the actor portraying him. I think this is a game direction issue. It's a direction issue of, I forget so often what our goal is because the villain is hardly present at all. And speaking of things that are not present, where are all the older characters at? Where are these at? Like, we get Moxie back, and that's great. Everyone loves Moxie. I love Moxie. I know you both love Moxie. Like, Moxie's awesome. But other than that, we get Claptrap, who's annoying as all hell. We get callbacks to the other Vault Hunters from Borderlands 3, which, Kyle, you couldn't even remember who they were. So that says enough about them. Like, you couldn't remember who Zane and Amara were.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel like we need to put a spoiler warning up, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. So go ahead and stop listening if you don't want to. But the decision to bring Lilith back is such a bad narrative decision. Her sacrifice in Borderlands 3 was the main reason you were able to win. And it feels like that is entirely undone by them bringing her back. It feels entirely undone. Like, but we don't see any other characters that are relevant in any of the other Borderlands games. I don't see any of them. It's like, what's the like? I feel like Gearbox drastically underestimated how much people loved certain characters, and how they drastically overestimated how much they liked others, like Claptrap. And I feel like that is just another part of what makes this game a disappointment. Is it feels almost like there's no ties whatsoever to the rest of the Borderlands series. It feels like this is completely cut off from it. And Kairos, to Matt, to your credit, I agree with you. It's an interesting setting for all of this, but it feels like in it not taking place on Pandora, it feels like they wanted this to be entirely separate, almost like it was a reboot, but nobody ever really said that that's what it was. So I can't really assume that's what it is, because they didn't really confirm that's what it is. But that's what it feels like. So I do want to say there is one, I think, positive that all of us can agree on. When the game worked and when we didn't have optimization issues, the gunplay is really good.
Yes.
Like, in terms of looter shooters, this is some of the best this gameplay has felt. It's a game that feels really, really good to play. The guns all feel different. They all feel unique. And there are several different ways you can play. In fact, I don't think the three of us played the same exact way from each other. I think that the Vault Hunters in here, in terms of the different play styles, I feel like for the most part, they were really good. I know, Kyle, you had some complaints about the Forge Knight, and understandable in terms of everything that I've seen online. It feels pretty widely agreed on that the Forge Knight is probably the worst class of the four, in terms of how fun it is to play. But, like Matt, you played the Exo Soldier as Rafa. I played the Siren as Vex. And I enjoyed what I played as Vex. I thought that having Trouble, that big old cat that you can summon to help you in battle, I thought it was a lot of fun. And I think that you would agree that Rafa's gadgets and his turrets, it's a fun character to play as. Like, the gunplay, Matt, is actually really, really fun. And it just makes the rest of the game disappointing, because you can have fun with the game, but only in really short bursts, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, even when you look back at all the negative things that we have said, not just about Borderlands 4, but previous games in the Borderlands franchise, the one thing that constantly stays, consistent is the gunplay. And here in Borderlands 4, it's just as strong as it's ever been. I did like switching between going from like a shotgun to a pistol to a sniper rifle on the fly. I thought that was really cool. I liked that, I like the abilities for the Vault Hunters, where as I was playing Rafa, the Exo Soldier, I like the fact that in his skill set, I can upgrade my skill tree with like turrets on my back, or auto locks, making a lot easier to dodge in combat. I thought that there was a lot of cool things. I also like the customization. Each of the Vault Hunters gets like very, unique skins to them. I mean, one of them with Rafa, you have him outside of his suit, and you can have him in his suit. I thought the optimization, or not the optimization, I thought the customization of like things like even the little robot that you get, the skins that you get for your vehicle. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff here to personalize your experience. With the gunplay, with the things that are at your disposal. It's just, unfortunately, all of it is bogged down by the game itself. And that's just unfortunate to say, because I was really looking forward to this game, especially playing the whole campaign with you guys. But then it just got to the point where it's like, I do not want to start the game up again.
Well, the way I've described it to a friend that asked me, what I thought about it, and it's a friend that he's been on the podcast. Darius has been on the podcast before, so I mean, it's everyone that listens probably knows who he is. But the way I described it to him was the story, and the way you progress through it feels very much like Busy Work, the game, like or Fetch Quest, the game. Like, all it is you're pretty much like, y'all remember in Far Cry 6 where like 70% of the game was, going and getting all the factions together and getting people on your side to go and fight, Giancarlo Esposito's villain. That's a lot of what this game is. And it just feels like there's no real progress being made. even when you're bringing these groups together and you're bringing these factions together, and it sucks because the gameplay itself is fun, but it's bogged down by a lot of things that just are not working in this game. Kyle, one small tweak that this game did make that I think we also all agree on was a really good change. I think being able to summon your vehicle anywhere is a really, really big quality of life upgrade. I think not having to find a catch a ride station, even though I will miss Scooter screaming catch a ride, I will always miss that. I feel like being able to summon your vehicle anywhere is a really good change. That in that regard, I feel like they evolved really well there. It just again makes me wish they'd applied it to the rest of the game.
I think that, when we first got in, there were a lot of things that we were looking at, like the, fact that you can spawn your vehicle anywhere. I also really enjoyed the jetpack. I thought that the jetpack was, a fun thing to, use. I think it was interesting to see how you could kind of maneuver your way around in areas that you definitely couldn't have in previous Borderlands games unless you were, cheesing the game. Now it's just like, hey, you want to go anywhere, There's just so much to complain about, unfortunately, that really makes these quality of life improvements feel like they're non-existent when compared to some of the bad things in this game. And I don't know, man. I think that also there are some of these things that, spawning your vehicle anywhere definitely could have been done in Borderlands 3. It could have been done in Tiny Tina's. It could have been done in the pre-sequel. And the fact that we waited until now, it's a great quality of life thing, but
why did it take this long?
Yeah, I wonder how many people stuck around this long to see it. I really am curious what this game's current player base is right now, because it didn't even get that much hype when it released. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. I saw people talk about it for maybe a day or two, and that was about it. I don't know, I think Gearbox needs to work on something else. Borderlands is done, and I get it's a franchise that they love, that they worked on for, decades, but it's time to just let it go. And maybe you could come up with a new idea for a looter shooter, similar to Borderlands, that has nothing to do with these characters, or this world, or even this art style. Do something new, and I'll be there, but I gotta be honest, I think I'm done with Borderlands. I'm not interested in the next one. I don't care who makes it. Borderlands 3 was okay, and this one needed to be good. And it was mid at best, unfortunately, to me.
Yeah, no, I think I find myself feeling the same way, is that if I play a Borderlands game again, it's going to be Borderlands 2. If I play another one, it's not going to be a new one. I feel very burned, and it sucks because I love Gearbox. I think Gearbox has done some really, really good work, but I do agree that I think it's time for them to move on. Time for them to find a new IP, build something new, and see if you can build a new franchise out of it. I mean, there are things in this game that work. It's just unfortunate because for every one thing that works in this game, there's probably 7 or 8 things that don't. And that's ultimately... That's the real problem at the end of the day. So that is going to do it for this episode of Side Mission. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. You can follow us on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. For the boys, for Kyle, for Matt, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.